Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic podcast, a space to honor women's rites of passage stories. From menarche to menopause, the initiations of womanhood all live within our wombs. Through our first bleed to our last, we come to know ourselves more deeply. This is a platform to reclaim the sacredness of all of it. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, birth keeper and women's coach, specializing in womb wellness and hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling? Let's dive in. Hello, women. Welcome back to the Moon Baby Magic podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for today's episode because it's really an episode all about what is possible when we are mothered well and what is possible when we have a supportive family system. The more I do this work, the more I feel so called to support the girls who are just entering into their cycling years, because I just have this vision of the world where the young girls enter into womanhood with intention, with reverence, with support from their community, and they learn about the phases of their cycle from the beginning. They never think something is wrong with them in the luteal phase. They know their power of creation as they move from follicular phase to ovulation, and they know how sacred their bodies are and to rest when they're menstruating. And Tohar's mom really, really taught her that. So in this episode, we have the unbelievably sweet story of Tohar, who entered into womanhood surrounded by love from her community. Tohar shares the normalization of menstruation in her family culture and how the women rested, as well as how girls are initiated into their first bleeds with reverence for being a cycling woman. Tohar tells the story of loving her period from the start and how having a supportive, healthy, and embodied mother set her up to become the strong and confident woman that she is today, even if she strayed for a little bit to try and be cool for a little while. You might shed a few loving tears and definitely smile big as you listen to Tohar's wonderful story, and it will definitely inspire those of you looking to initiate your daughters. I'm so excited to get into this episode today, women. A couple of announcements before we dive right in. Intentional Maidenhood began. I mention it in the recording because it had not begun when I did the recording, but Intentional Maiden has begun. This first round is going really wonderfully with 12 women. And we hope to run the program again. We will be running the program again. Oh, there comes the sun on my face. And the retreat, the Nourished and Thriving Women's Retreat in Peru, is happening this May, the 19th through the 26th. This is the perfect place to be if you're ready to dive into truly nourishing yourself. So we're having these 3 really amazing, all organic, farm fresh meals, no seed oils, none of the bad stuff. Meals per day. Everyone's getting massages and yoni steams, and we're doing a naked day. And we're going to be going to these beautiful sacred sites in Peru. And Laura and I will be leading workshops, but most of the stuff in the retreat is really designed to be a space of integration and a space of truly nourishing. And the question that I'm asking the women coming to this retreat is really the same premise of Tohar's story, is like, who could you be when you're fully taken care of? And that's something I'm really interested in seeing. So if you're interested in coming in the retreat, we've got 7 spots left and we would love to have you. You can find all the details in the show notes. Let's get on to Tohar's incredibly sweet story. All right. Hello, love. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is fun. Tohar and I have already had a bit of a morning together, so it's nice.
Yes.
Full day. And yeah, as I was mentioning to you before, I really like to start these episodes off with just sharing what phase of your cycle you're in to orient us to that, and also what phase of your larger life cycle you're in. So whatever you want to share in that realm, I would love to hear.
Yeah, so I am now entering my ovulatory phase. Yes, and I've had, as you know, because we talked about it, but I've had kind of an interesting cycle this past cycle, and so I'm like there's a lot of excitement right now in the cycle of kind of re-entering to a new cycle and seeing what this one brings. And being in my ovulatory phase, I'm like I'm just doing so many things. And at the same time, it's funny, like here in Colorado, and we're having like 3 days now, the entire weekend, starting today until Monday, is completely freezing, like highest temperature of like 5 degrees and going down to -17, and it's snowy. And so I was supposed to have a very busy weekend. Like I had a bunch of photo shoots and stuff booked and I canceled it all. And so I'm really forced this weekend to just channel all of this like energy that's in me now into being at home and like what I'm doing. So yes. So I'm kind of navigating all of that. And
Yeah. Well, let me just say before we move further, it's like so interesting that ovulatory energy in winter because, often like we can't like or we don't want to necessarily do all of the like super outward things that we do in the summer or spring or even autumn. And it's like, gosh, like where does all the energy go? I was even feeling that just before we started recording. I'm like, I'm on day 14. I'm in my ovulatory window too. And I'm just like, oh my God, like there's so much energy in my body. Like it needs to go somewhere.
seriously, I literally before we got on our session, I went, I did my makeup, I did my hair, I went and modeled like in 50 minutes, right? And those 50 minutes, I modeled for my husband, I went and ate lunch, I made myself a matcha, I like did all these things, and I'm like, just so much energy. This morning I tried to sit down and just play guitar. I was like, oh, I need to like
I know.
something
And we
else.
were
I need to move.
We were talking about that too earlier of just like the self-care can sometimes be a bit trickier in the ovulatory window because it's like you're just like, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to remember to take this probiotic. I'm too busy to do my castor oil pack. Like I'm too busy.
Way too busy. And yeah, and this weekend I'm not busy at all. So I'm like, I feel this busyness and I'm also not busy at all.
And I
So
think that like when we're in that place where we're ovulating and like more in our home environment, like for example in winter, like you really can channel that energy into self-care.
Mhm.
You can channel it into self-care, you can channel it into organizing. Although I feel like the ovulatory energy, the energy of the inner mother archetype, she really likes to make things beautiful. So I find that it's not actually the best time to deep clean or something like that. That's more like luteal phase vibes.
Mhm.
But making a room in your house really beautiful or doing an art project or something like that is like really a good to use that energy, I find.
Oh yeah, my plans for this weekend is to make like 15 pizzas to freeze so that I have a bunch of frozen pizza for the next like 2 months.
That's
So
amazing.
that's my
Oh,
plan. That's how I'm gonna channel all my energy, is just a bunch of cooking. So
I love that.
yes, yes. But yeah, and then in terms of my life phase, I'm in my maiden phase. I'm building my career and working, and I'm kind of balancing this. I just graduated college in May, and I did not do anything with my degree. And I
Mhm.
completely got that degree and was like, never mind. So I'm really like figuring myself out right now, I feel like.
Mhm.
And I'm also in this like, I feel like the mother like energy is coming soon, but I'm also so strongly in the maiden energy of like trying to like build my career and trying to like take care of everything around me and almost like preparing for the mother time. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, totally. That's such a good topic. I'm actually creating this program with a friend of mine on like really harnessing the maiden energy and as in like your larger life cycle maiden energy because it's everything you just said. It's like this is the time in your life to like go hard on you and your career and your passions. And part of that is to set up your life for when you're a mother. If you crave motherhood, make your life how you want it now, because that's going to really set you up for success so that you can have the family life that you want. I have to remind myself that all the time. I'm sort of in a similar place to you where like I feel the energy of the mother for sure. I'm in my late 20s, like I feel that energy. But I'm
Mhm.
also still like very squarely in the maiden in the sense that I'm so career focused and I would say focused on myself, although lately it's been kind of a shift in me where I'm a little more focused on service, but like focused on creating my life the way that I want it to be so that when I get to the mother phase, like when I have physical children on this earth, I can be so present for them because I really went hard on my stuff first. And I think it's like a really important time. And I know so many maidens like yearn to be mothers. And there's all this talk of the wounded maiden and killing the maiden off and all this stuff. And it's like, no, this phase of life is actually really beautiful and really important and sets us up for the next phase of life. So I love that you're honoring that and being intentional about how you're creating your life. It's so special.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like connecting to that point of like this time of not being a mother quite yet. And we talked about this earlier. Every ovulation, right? It's like, oh, I want children, I want this, right? And it's like, but learning how to channel that into we're not having children right now. So right now I can like channel that energy into the maiden energy of preparing, of making, of focusing on building my life to have that totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. One of my teachers, Nancy Lucina, when I took the blood mystery school, this was like 3 years ago, I think. So maybe it was before I took the blood mystery school, and I was just talking to her, and I was telling her sort of similarly, man, it's like every time I get post ovulation, I'm so sad that I don't have a baby, even though I'm like not on a practical level calling that in right now. And she was like, maybe like get pregnant with a project. And I like ever since she gave me those instructions, I have done that every month. I'm like, all right, I will utilize this egg's full potential on something because it does sort of fulfill that like primal desire, not fully, but just enough.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. I actually was talking to, so I'm training with a midwife right now. And as you know, and I was talking to her about that energy of like, why is it that I'm like, oh, am I pregnant? Am I not? Like,
Yeah.
and she was like, I wonder if what you're feeling is actually the baby of like wanting to do birth work, of wanting to do this next new thing. And that's your baby. That's your pregnancy, right? It's like brewing in you. So yeah, definitely like connecting to that too is it's huge. It's like I'm not having a child right now, but what is my child of the month is I'm working on channeling that energy more into that. It's a journey. So
Yeah.
yes.
We're always learning to be like in more right relationship with our cycles and like how to flow with that energy, I think. And yeah, I just think it's great. Like anytime I talk to a woman who's like really making the most of her maiden years, I'm so inspired because yeah, I think it's not super common in our culture to like create your own life. Not a lot of people take responsibility for creating their life the way that they want it. And I think that's like kind of the initiatory task of the maiden phase of life. So yeah, I'm curious to like get into your menarche story, which I know that was like a big reason that you wanted to come on and share your story, and I'm so interested to hear it. So wherever you want to start with that story, I'd love to get into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love sharing it because I feel like when I moved to the US, I was 13 and it was just so different. Like all the stories of my friends getting, their first bleed was like so different than how I grew up. So yeah, so I guess I'll start with I've always been very close and familiar to menstrual blood in the sense that my mom, since I was born, had been using um, reusable pads. And so I would like sit with her in the bathroom while she washed her blood every month, right? While she was bleeding. So and
That's amazing.
yeah, and I would like help her hang the pads. And so I was very like close with my mom's menstrual blood. Like I literally would like see her washing it every month. And so let's start there. Like
Now, is that like a cultural thing or was that just your mom?
I think it's both. I know
Okay.
like all of my aunts and grandma and great grandmas and everybody, like they all used reusable pads.
Wow.
So yeah, and they're not like holistic or anything, it was just kind of,
Mhm.
but also I'm thinking, so for those who are listening, I grew up in Israel, right? So like very definitely different culturally, and I'll get into that more, but
Yeah.
um women in Israel use tampons and
Yeah.
like regular pads all the time, but specifically my family, I don't know, they all used reusable
Wow.
pads. So,
You lucked out on that one.
yes. So I was always very familiar with it. My sister was 15 when I was born, and so she had already been bleeding too. And whenever I was around her, like there was just never shame. Like I would see period blood all the time, all the time. Yes. And so I remember growing up, my cousin and I are 1 year apart, and she's like my best friend. We grew up like sisters, and she our whole childhood she had this like, because she was 1 year older than me, she was like, oh, you won't understand because you're you're 1 year younger. Every year it was like the same thing. She was like, you won't understand this because you're 11 and
Isn't
you're
it funny when we're younger, like, and like 1 year is such a big difference, and we think we're so much older and wiser than people who are like 1 or 2 years younger.
I know. So like our whole childhood was just this like routine. And so of like her being, yeah, you just won't understand. So then she got her bleed at 11.
Mm.
And I mean, I remember like being really jealous of her, and for a few reasons. For a few reasons. So I will say, I think in Israel, like in terms of familial relations, and I think that it does vary between your cultures. My family on my mom's side is originally from northern Africa, and so like Tunisia, Morocco area, as well as
Okay.
Yemen. So they're considered Mizrahi Jews, which is very different than like Ashkenazi, which is
Mm.
my dad's side. And so my dad's side is definitely not like this, I should preface, but my mom's side is all the family is very connected and very close. And so when my cousin started her bleed, right, she was 11 years old, her mom called everybody in our family, like all the
Whoa.
uncles, the aunts, everyone, and was like, she's a woman. She got her first bleed. Like, it's so
Ah,
exciting, right? And so I like remember being in the car with my mom and my dad and
oh my God.
brother who was like 20 something, right? And we're in the car, and my aunt is calling. She's like, you guys, like my daughter, she's a woman. Like she got her bleed. She's a woman. I'm so
It's like cute, but also
excited.
mortifying.
Yes, totally. So my cousin was mortified. But I was like, oh my gosh. Like, she's my cool older cousin. Like, I want my period now too.
Oh,
And every month that she would bleed, she would like complain to me about the pains and blah, 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 and be like, this sucks. And I was like, oh, like, I just can't wait to have a period. Like, I want it,
yes.
And yes. And then I think when I was 12, I would just ask my mom more questions, because at that point it was,
Mhm.
most of my friends had gotten their period as well.
Yeah.
And I hadn't, I was the first of all my friends to get boobs, but like I got boobs when I was like 10, I think by the time I was
Whoa.
12, I was like a C cup. Like I had big boobs growing up.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which that's a whole other thing. My dad works in the soy industry, so I like
Okay.
ate a
Yeah.
lot of soy my entire childhood, and I'm pretty convinced that's why. But
Yeah, I mean the estrogen.
yeah, so I got my period, or I got my boobs really early, but not my period. And so at this point, I was 12 years old, and like I had like five girlfriends. All of them have gotten their periods, and I'm with boobs and no period. And I'm just like, and all of them are complaining about it, right? All of them are like, oh, it sucks. Like, you don't want it. It's like a good thing that you're not getting it yet, It's
I almost feel like, there's this energy of like, oh, it sucks, but it is still a cool girls club, because like on some level, we know that is a rite of passage because most women, honestly, who I interview on this podcast, even if they were like a little bit ashamed of their period, there was still most of the time a little bit of like excitement and anticipation because there's like that, like, ooh, what's next? What is this? Like this cool
Mhm.
new thing.
Totally. And I think, like I said, with my cousin's whole like, oh, I'm a year older than you, so like when she got her period, it definitely got worse because she's like, oh yeah, you just won't understand because you don't have your period yet.
You're like, but I want to understand.
I know, like, I want to know. And so, I'm 12. All my friends have it. And I remember like in school, we would sit there and my friends would sneak like pads to the bathroom and all of that. And I was just like, oh man, like I want to do that. I was like, I want that too. And I talked to my mom and I was like, tell me, like tell me everything about periods. I want to know. And so um I think at that time she could tell that I was very much in a hurry to have a
Mm,
period. And so I think most of her intention was just to kind of like connect me to you will get it when you're meant to get it, and it's okay. Um,
yeah.
but she got me this book. So that's the book I've been like dying to show you. So,
Oh, yeah.
actually, before this book, she got me a different book that was about like puberty. And it's
Oh,
like, I think a lot of people have had this, like these kinds of books, but it's a book that talks to you about like what can happen during puberty. Like your hair starts growing, like you start having thoughts about boys. And so it had graphics and stuff. And
yeah.
I remember reading that book and seeing, it talked about like periods, and there was like just an image of a girl standing over a toilet and it's like completely red. And I was like, oh God, like that's
You're like,
what having a period is like. You just stand over the toilet and it's like red.
not really how it goes, but okay.
No, so that was like a small little book. And I think she really got it for me for like, it was like about the hair and boobs and everything else. So
Yeah.
then
Well,
she got
that's
me
great to just have some like understanding around what's going to happen.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I still had questions. And then she got me this book, which it's in Hebrew. So
Yeah. Describe it for people who aren't watching video.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's called let me try to translate. I think child, teenager, woman. And it's like the guide to getting your first bleed with love is what it says.
Oh,
So it has this like beautiful cover of a woman wearing all red.
oh,
And when you kind of go into it, basically every page has like a mandala of like a yoni
oh,
and some women around it and stuff. So it was like a
oh,
guidebook as well as like just like some drawings and paintings that paint the image. And so
oh my,
it yeah, it really was so beautiful. And I actually remember when my mom gave it to me, I thought I felt really like shy and like embarrassed by it almost. I was like,
mm.
oh, like there's a vagina, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Like, no, thank you. um, but it really is beautiful. So I just stumbled upon it actually before we even booked our podcast, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, I'm gonna like save this so that if I have daughters, I can give it to them.
oh,
But yeah, so it kind of it talks like I'll kind of just like go through a little bit of what it talks about.
yeah.
It talks about like, is our blood really gross, quote unquote gross? And it talks about like actually the importance and beauty of like, shedding your uterine lining, and how it has a purpose and it's absolutely not gross. And so
Mm.
um yes, and then it kind of goes into like what to expect when you start your bleed, like how long can it last, how will I know that I started bleeding, and how much blood am I going to have, and all of kind of more details. And it
Mm.
does actually also go into like how it's connected to the moon cycle and like really
Whoa.
depth about it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it's a really cool book. I told you. Like, yes. And then it talks about just the cycle of women's lives and how it goes beyond just period. It's like, your period, but it talks about like how it represents all the different periods in your cycle. So it does go into like, once you start your cycle, you're starting to have all these other cycles in your month of like your energy changes, and you go from like being this, as we talked about, right, like this really energetic to wanting to do everything to completely wanting to lay down and just not do anything at all. So it goes into that and like the power of the cycle. And it actually I reread it today before our podcast so that I can remember, because it's been 11, 12 years.
yeah.
um, it has a whole page explaining why using the word yoni is so important. So
Oh,
yes.
stop. I need this book.
I know, it's amazing. And I tried to find it in English because it's
Yeah.
actually an American author that wrote it.
Yeah.
Her name is Diana Lamb.
Okay.
But I could not, like, I found her website, but I couldn't find this specific book. So
Interesting.
yes. But yeah, it talks about like why yoni, and then about pregnancy and the fact that now you can start being pregnant, and like the importance of understanding that. and the very last page is how to honor your bleed. And so it kind of gives advice of like wear red on your bleeding days and eat red foods and like put a red rose on your table next to you. And so it really is, it's so unique.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So this was like, I remember getting this at 12 and reading it, and I was very embarrassed when I read it. And I was very
Oh.
like, this is like so adult. And I felt like it almost wasn't for me to read, and it wasn't like
Mm.
for my eyes to like see the pictures and stuff. Um, but now looking back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how special is this that my mom gifted me this at 12 years old? Like that's so unique. So
That's so amazing. I mean, the things that it goes into are really beautiful. Like, I love that you shared some of the stuff around how, it shares like now you can get pregnant, like the meaning, right? Like the physiological meaning of what it is to begin bleeding and to begin being a cycling woman. But then also like to go into the sacredness of it and like why menstrual blood isn't dirty and how to like wear red and put a rose on it. Like those are things I didn't learn until I was in my 20s, you know? I'm like only the past few years I've been putting red roses on my altar when I'm bleeding. And the I think the most important thing really in that, I always think this is the most important thing for the young maidens to know is how their energy changes throughout the cycle because they don't really need to know how to track like their cervical mucus and their temperatures yet. Like you don't need that until a little bit later. But to understand the energetic fluctuations that you go through on a cycle, I think would save so many middle school and high school girls so much headache of thinking that like something's wrong with them or not understanding it because the energy fluctuations are even more when you first begin your cycle. Like it's so intense. Like your PMS and your like moods, like all of it's so intense in those early cycling years. And so to have that understanding, like before you even enter that you even are a cycling woman, that like this even happens. I didn't even know anything beyond that I got my period. I had no idea how long my cycle was. It's just like all of a sudden I would start bleeding and I was like, ah, shit, like for many years. And so to go into that, like knowing your energy is going to change throughout that is just, that's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. So I will go into like my first getting my cycle later because it happened a little later, but kind of around the same time. So right, so this is a 12. I didn't get my period until I was almost 14. So this was 2 years before I started bleeding. Um, but I would read it, and as I said, I felt very like embarrassed. So when my mom tried to talk to me about it, I was very like, don't don't talk to me about it. But
And
then
I want to ask you one thing first. So was your mom and your aunts and the women in your family, were they like really honoring their bleeds? Like, because she got you this book, like were they like putting red roses in their rooms?
not my extended family. My mom, she didn't do like she would wear red on occasion when she was bleeding, but I wouldn't necessarily like know.
Okay.
Kind of like know
Yeah.
that in hindsight now. But she would never work on those days, and it was very known, and my sister still does this with her kids now too. Is like we all knew as kids, and then like my sister's kids now too, of like when mom starts bleeding, she needs her space. Like
Wow.
give her the space. And so my dad
Yeah.
would like take me out and we would go do other things, but like leave my mom to kind of just like do her own thing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that's definitely, and honestly that was a thing with my extended family. Like it was just kind of known that on the first day of a woman's bleed, like to just not ask her for things, not to like burden her with stuff, just let her bleed. And I think that's also a big cultural difference, is like I do think that there is a lot more of like honoring of the first day of the period in Israel.
Mm.
Like a lot of women will call out of work and it's kind of acceptable to
Wow.
do that. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it depends on where you work, but I know
Yeah.
that. And then I also remember like my aunt would suffer really bad ovulation pains. And I
Mm.
literally remember like, not, this is on my dad's side, actually, the one that wasn't super like connected. But I remember like the amount of times that we were gonna hang out and then my uncle would call in and be like, oh, actually we can't today because like she's having really bad ovulation pains. There's just a lot of openness about like
That's
women's
great.
cycles. So yeah, so this is a 12. And then at this time too, that's when they kind of started doing, like sex education in my school. And
Mhm.
I remember, I think this is very special. They separated us, to girls and boys at this time, as I think they do in the US schools as well.
Yeah.
And for us, for the girls, the main thing that we did to talk about bleeding was we read, I don't know if many people know this, but the Anne Frank's diaries have a whole cut out part that was not published in the like most known book, where she talks about her bleed and her experience like starting to menstruate in
Wow.
she was in that house. She actually talks about her sexuality and like all of that experience. So her dad, when he released the book, decided to cut that out because he didn't want to like embarrass. I mean,
Oh.
like embarrass her spirit and whatever.
Uh,
So it's not in the book that people usually read, but it is written and there is like
oh.
access to it. Yeah. So
I
so
had
all
no
of
idea.
us, yeah. I know a lot of people don't know that, but our sex education class in Israel was like reading Anne Frank's diary of like getting her menstrual cycle and like talking
Whoa.
about her experience.
That's kind of cool because it's like learning through story, which is like what I do on this podcast. It's like we learn so much from just other people's experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really special. So I think she was like around 12 years old when she got her period. And so it was like right on time. We were in sixth grade, and that's around how
Wow.
old she was. And we read her story. I mean, it's obviously very different because she was living with like, I think like 10 other people in a teeny tiny house, but
Yeah.
it was very real. It was very real of like just talking like how she was feeling, the moods that she was going through, like what it was feeling like wanting to be alone in that time. And like, she
Oh.
can't because she was like with all these people. So yeah, it was really cool. So that was literally the only like class I remember about periods in school. It's like really significant and very cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So all in all, I didn't think about this much when I was a child of like how special it is that people are so open about it, obviously, because it's the only reality I knew.
Yes, yeah.
But now I'm looking back at it, like knowing all the stories I do, I'm like, wow, like the fact that my aunt was so excited, and like, I mean, my poor cousin, but my uncles were all like, yay, you got your period. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm 11. Don't talk to me about this.
It's like it's gonna be mortifying regardless, like just because we're young and awkward and like rites of passage are awkward. Like I don't really think that's about shame. I think it's just like entering into a new phase of life. But to have the energy, like I always say, the imprint you receive is like the energy that your guardian, your mother, whoever like brings to it, and to have the energy of excitement, and that's like what is modeled to you. Like, of course, you're going to be a little embarrassed, but like that's not really going to be shame. It's more just like awkwardness. I think that's so sweet.
Yeah, I think it's so awesome. And honestly, like just the core memory of like the men in my life being so excited,
Yes.
like
Yes.
it's so cool. I'm like, that's not something that, even women, it's so rare for them to have experience from their mothers and their aunts, that like feeling of
Yep.
excitement, that for it to have been from the men. And now I'm thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, like duh, it's not a big deal, right? Like but at the time I was like, oh, like why are these men like it's weird that we're telling them it's like a secret woman's thing. So yes, but I love it, and I think it's very special. Yeah, and so kind of into like my own experience. So fast
Yeah.
forward a year and a half of me wanting my period so badly, and every time my girlfriends were on their periods I was like, dang it, like when is mine gonna come? And I then moved to the US, so I was 13 and a half when we moved. I was about to start eighth grade, and I man I wanted to live the American dream so badly. So I was like, I convinced my parents to sign me up for cheerleading, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do cheerleading. And I went to cheerleading camp, and this was in August. And first day of cheerleading camp, I'm there and I'm like, oh, my stomach hurts.
Oh, baby.
Something is weird. My stomach hurts, and I didn't think much of it. And then I got home and I, saw blood on my underwear, and I, I was so excited. Like I was
Oh.
so excited. I started crying, but out of joy, and I ran to my mom's room with my underwear, and I was like, "Oh my God, is this
You're like, "Just
blood?"
look."
I literally showed her. I was like, "Does this mean I just got my period?" And she was like, "Yes, like yeah, that's amazing." And I was
Oh.
like, "Oh my God." And so I was so excited. And I remember that day I asked her so many questions. I was like, "Wait, can I like poop while I'm like bleeding?"
So funny.
Yes. Yeah, and she was like, and I was like, "What do we do now?" And she was like, "Okay, well, I have some reusable pads. I'll give you some of those for now." And
Wow.
yeah, but at the time, I also was trying really hard to be like mainstream, So
Yeah, of
obviously,
course.
as you can tell, I grew up very like in a very open household, whatever. That was not the mainstream. The mainstream was like hide stuff from your parents, and so I was like, oh no, I want tampons. Like
Yeah.
everybody who's cool uses tampons. So
Yep. Yep. It was a cool thing. It was for sure a cool thing.
such a cool thing.
I know.
And my mom was like, hell no, you're not using fucking tampons.
Good for your mom.
Yes. And I remember, I mean, my whole like teenagehood, I had so much opposition to my mom's things that now I'm like obsessed with and I love. But
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think it's very normal. Again, referencing my teacher, Nancy Lucina, who I really learned a lot of the stuff about like young girls and bleeding and more of the energetic stuff of the cycle from.
mhm,
She really talks about like it's actually important for the young maidens to go through a period of needing to differentiate themselves because like you're testing your limits, figuring out who you are in this like specific way.
mhm,
But then it's really important for the mom to just like hold the line, to like
mhm.
hold the line and like let you venture off, but always be right there holding the line because eventually, like, usually the girls will come back around.
Yeah. So that totally happened to me. But yeah, at the time I was like, I'm not using reusable pads, gross, blah, blah, blah. Even though like growing up, I was like with my mom all the time when she was like, I was totally like comfortable with them. I would help her wash her period blood. And but at that time, I was like, so excited, and at the same time I was like, no, I'm not doing your hippy dippy like witchy woo woo stuff. I was like, I'm gonna use tampons like all the cool girls, and that failed. I hated tampons. It hurt so bad the first time I tried putting it in, and
Yeah.
it was not for me. So anyway, so she got me some like organic pads. At least they were disposable, but she was like, at least they'll be good. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it
Wow.
was like such an exciting time. I was so happy. And I went up to my dad too. I was like, Dad,
Oh.
like I freaking got my period, And he was so
Oh.
excited for me. And so it was like, yeah, it was very special. And again, I'm like, all of my girlfriends who shared with me, like that they were told that, oh, you got the curse, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, like I loved it. I remember like my first period being the best feeling ever. Like I called all my cousins, I called my sister, I called everybody. I
Oh,
was like, I have my period, like, oh my gosh.
that's so, I mean, magical. And it's really like the reality I hope to spread with this podcast. Because, I mean, because you had this familial imprint, and even if it's not like Israeli culture at large. It was like your family culture was like comfortable sharing this, excited about it, like really honored it as a rite of passage, you know? You're a woman now. And that got you excited about it. And you felt comfortable enough to share that with your mom and with your dad and to call your cousins and to be like lifted up and honored as you entered into this new phase. And like, what an imprint to enter into womanhood with like security, excitement. Like, I
Mhm.
just, yeah, I mean, I think that's the best thing a girl can receive.
Totally.
How do you
Totally.
feel like that like impacted you, through your early cycling years?
I think honestly the thing that's coming to mind now, as like you were saying, where you were just saying, is like, and I don't like to compare myself to other women, but I'm just looking kind of like as a general teenage girl time, you know.
Yeah.
I was probably like the latest out of all of my friends and everybody to lose my virginity. Like I was just very comfortable with like
Mhm.
myself and then very honest with my parents, like about everything,
Wow.
you know, like when it came to like drinking in high school or like doing anything like that, like I would talk to them about everything before I would even do it.
Wow.
And I think they just created a platform of like feeling really comfortable of like sharing what's going on in my life. And I think that that saved me a lot of heartbreak and a lot of really bad situations that I could have been in.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people say like, "Oh, you have to learn for yourself." And I think sometimes you do, but like that's also the role of parents is to like support you and hold boundaries, like loving boundaries. Boundaries are really loving for teens.
yeah,
So that you don't have to like learn the hard way sometimes.
totally. Yeah, and I think like, you know, kind of in the later years when I like became more of like a sexual being and whatever, I would talk to my mom about all of that. And it helped me so much in the sense that my mom was so adamant on like honoring your, you know, like your inner space, like honoring your temple
Mhm.
that's you
Yeah.
and not just giving in to like, you know, everybody around me was having sex, everybody was doing all of that. And I was like, so like private with myself and
Yeah.
my body. And
Well, yeah, because you saw your body as holy because that's what was mirrored to you.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's the biggest one is like my mom wasn't, you know, she wasn't ashamed to talk to me about sex. She wasn't ashamed to talk to me about like periods. I mean, my mom always laughed at me as a teenager that I was oversharing with her about sex and periods and stuff. She was like, okay, you know, I don't need to know all of that, or it's okay.
You're like, I'm gonna tell you all the details, mom.
Like
Oh,
still
that's
till this
sweet.
day, oh my gosh, I like tell her everything and she's just like, okay.
That was sweet to have that relationship where you felt safe, because that's really what transmutes shame. Like, there's not shame when you feel safe to share, when everything is open.
Totally. So I get my period, and I think I was always really, just really unashamed of it. I mean, even in schools and stuff, like I would hide my pads and stuff when I would go to the bathroom, but more because I thought like that's what I had to do. But I didn't really care if people knew I was on my period. Like I was like,
Mm,
you know. Um,
yeah.
I know my friends would always share that they were like embarrassed when they opened their pads and it like made the sound that you're like opening a
Oh,
pad, you know? And they were like so embarrassed. And I was just like, you know, like whatever.
yeah.
Um,
And
so
so at the time, did you like talk to your friends about it? Were you like, guys, your period's great? Or did you just not really talk about it with them?
we just didn't really talk about it. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, again, like as I said, I was really in a phase in my life at that time of like really trying to form into like what society needed me to be. Um,
Yeah.
before moving away from Israel, like the last 4 or 5 years that we were there, I was really, really bullied because
Mm,
I think of the fact that I came from this kind of like household background where everything, like I just, my parents were like everything to me.
yeah.
And I just was not the type of kid to like talk shit about my parents and like do all of this stuff. And people made
Yeah.
fun of me for that and like did not like that. And I was very strong and secure in myself that I think people hated that, you know, as like kids. So,
Isn't that crazy that like when we're younger, it's like cool to not care and it's cool to be rude and it's cool to be disconnected. And so many of us fall into that. And like it's so I think about that. I was just talking to someone about that the other day. It's like we're so focused on being cool when we're younger, and that's like that's such the last thing on my mind now. I'm like, I don't, that's not even a thought that crosses my mind.
it's crazy. I know. So, you know, so I was like, I was just trying to do everything like the way that society needed me to be because I moved to the US and it was this like clean slate. It was like, okay, I'm in
Yeah,
this new
totally.
country. I get to like reinvent who I am. And this person
Yeah.
I wanted to be was a cool girl who has a lot of
Yeah.
friends. And like,
Yeah.
so, but then fast forwarding a little more. So, you know, I did eighth grade. That was my first year having my period. And I felt great about it. I mean, we had, you know, like the sex ed class. That was my first American sex ed. And I have to say, fucking shitty.
Yeah.
So bad. Like it was like it had us, like I don't know, doing role play of like some weird shit of like, oh, I don't like it was just stupid.
It's
Anyways,
not great.
no, no. And it was this, old man who I would never have felt comfortable talking about my period with. And
Yeah, right. Why is it always an old man? Mine
I
was
know,
too. It's so
like,
creepy.
don't talk to me about my period, you creepy
Yeah.
old.
I remember too, like
So
they tried to talk to us about like masturbation. And it's this like old man, and they're like, and it's okay if you want to do it. And I'm just like, oh.
like, who are you? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I really
Anyways.
hated sex ed in the US in general. And so that was my eighth grade. And, it was honestly like, I hated middle school in Israel, but then when I moved here, I loved it. I mean, maybe it was because I was a new woman. I was just initiated right before I started like school here. It was just this whole new beginning of like,
Yeah.
we came here a month later, I got my period, and then like here I am,
Yeah.
this new person.
Yeah.
So and then in high school, freshman year, there was a girl who you might be familiar with. Do you know the period company, like the one that makes
Mhm.
like the period underwear?
Yeah.
Owner of that company. Okay, she was in a neighboring high school to mine, and she
Oh,
had this club called Girl Up, and it was like through it's like a United Nations Association organization thing. Big long words, anyways.
okay.
And it was about like spreading just it was like a feminist group, anyways.
Cool.
I worked with like Michelle Obama and stuff.
Oh,
And
wow.
I joined that club when I was in high school, and she was kind of like the leader of it in Portland. She was a senior when I was a freshman. And then from there, she also kind of started like talking about menstrual period. Like, I don't know if you've seen her TED Talks and stuff, but she is now like she had a big TED Talk about like periods and like the initiation into motherhood or into womanhood and all of this stuff.
Oh,
But anyways, so I was part of her club, and like we would meet every couple of months and stuff. So I definitely was involved, and I was one of the people who got like free menstrual stuff into like free menstrual products into our high school. And so definitely
wow.
was still something that I was like interested in, and I found
Yeah.
a way to do it in a cool girl way. I was like in this club
Yes.
with cool
Yes.
girls. And we did a locker project where we have a big locker that's available to all the girls with like cup or not cups, but pads and tampons and stuff. So
I don't
um
know why, but the only thing that's like ringing through my mind right now is like putting on a t-shirt or something like cool girls honor menstruation.
yeah, no, that's totally the vibe that we had. We were like, we did have
Yeah,
a t-shirt and it said girl up, and it was
that's
like,
awesome.
yeah. But I mean, that girl's really cool. She started like when she was, I think, 18, she started a company that was like giving, because I was living in Portland, Oregon,
Hmm.
and there's a big homelessness situation there. And
Right.
the big problem there was like a lot of the homeless women were using dirty napkins and
Oh,
like toilet paper rolls and stuff like that to like for their menstrual stuff.
yeah.
And so her project at the time was like giving out free menstrual products. And so I kind of got involved in that. So I
That's
did
amazing.
cycle back into my like yay periods
I
after.
love that. I love that you found a way to reconnect.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of like, my whole journey about it. And then I feel like, as I said,
Wow.
I was like, my whole teenagehood, I was not the easiest teenager for my mom. As I said, like
Mhm.
she was very holistic and spiritual. And I was so anti that when I was a teenager. Like I was like, like you're being stupid, like this is ridiculous. She was like, she wouldn't want to vaccinate me for things. And then
Wow.
I would like go against it and go get vaccinated behind her back because I was like,
Uh,
fuck this. Like
we're such little assholes.
I know, seriously. I'm looking back, I'm like, wow, I was such a dick.
I
Like,
know. I mean, all of us in different ways. Like, I just even think like my mom, I'd make her drop me off around the corner from the mall as if like me, a 14-year-old, is getting to the mall on her own, like everyone's believing that.
It's so crazy. But I do, like you said at the beginning, like Nancy's quote is like, I think it's such an important step because I don't think I would have found the deep appreciation that I do now for my mom if I didn't go through that. Like, I hate everything that you believe in phase, like
Yeah.
you're being stupid. But now I'm able to be like, wow, like she was right about it all. And I'm so grateful too. And I tell my mom this all the time, like the fact that she stood very strong in front of me in that. Like I think this is
Yeah.
something for mothers who are mothering teenagers to know is like it I can't even imagine how hard it is when your teenager is standing in front of you and being like you're fucking stupid, like blah blah blah, to like still stand your ground and be like, well, sucks, like
Well, I mean, that's an embodied woman, that's a woman who, like, your mom is a woman who is honoring her cycle, living in right relationship with her cycle, it sounds like. And so, like, she was secure in herself because I think as women, like, our power really lives within our pelvis, within our wombs, being grounded in our bodies. And so, if you're someone who's comfortable with menstruation, comfortable with your bleeding body, like, she was secure enough in herself that she didn't need to be triggered by like you figuring yourself out, which is really wonderful.
yeah, totally. Yeah, and I guess another thing with like the period, and bleeding and stuff in my teenage years, this is kind of more like my relationship with my dad. I don't know how
Mm.
many men listen to your podcast, but I do think it's so
Hey,
important.
there is a small percentage in my analytics. There's a
Yeah.
little bit.
Like I remember my dad would be so good at honoring the first day of my bleed. Like when I started bleeding, he would like take me out to eat my favorite burger and he would get me chocolates and like it would just get me the heating pad, So he was so good at like
Wow.
honoring it and understanding it, and he didn't make me feel ashamed of it. I mean, occasionally he would make a joke of like, oh, that's why you're cranky, and whatever, but
We
I
can't all
will
be
take
perfect.
that. Yeah, exactly. But considering the amount of like he really understood, and it's because of my mom. He didn't grow up with that, but my
Wow.
mom as a woman taught him how to be a supportive person for someone who's
Hell
bleeding.
yeah. Hell
Yeah,
yeah. And that's really our responsibility as women, like the men don't get taught. Like you as a partner have to teach them. But the fact that your dad modeled that for you, that like there was a man in your life who honored that, like that's also an important imprint, for any women listening or men listening to like allow a father figure to give that to a daughter. Like that's going to make sure you choose a good man in your life.
totally. And I mean, I think that's part of why, like my husband has two sisters and his mom, and all of them are very comfortable talking about their periods and like, like
Nice.
they would like he was very familiar with
Heck
it
yeah.
too. And so it was never we started dating when we were 16 and I never once like
Oh,
embarrassed to hide my like period from him or like anything like that.
yeah.
So like having period sex was really natural to me. I was like, yeah, whatever. And it's funny, I actually now like fast forward, I hate period sex. I'm like,
Yeah.
I do not want to be touched at that time. But it was never like an
Yeah.
embarrassing thing for me. So
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I don't know if I don't think I ever felt embarrassed with any partners about period sex, which like I know a lot of women deal with that, like feeling like it's dirty. I don't think I never felt like my blood was dirty. I had like imprints in other ways, but I never felt like I was like dirty when I was bleeding. I just felt like it was an inconvenience. And man, like thank God, because that must be a really tough imprint to let go of. And I know a lot of women who have had to really work through that. But yeah, it's like I think you also get to a point where period sex, it's like, actually, my energy really wants to move down and out, and I would like to just like have everyone leave me alone. And if you would like to enter into my space, you may rub my feet or bring me chocolate.
exactly. Make me
So
some
like,
chocolate, make me some food. Like that is it. Yes. Oh my gosh. But it took time, and I actually remember
so
my mom telling me that. Like she would tell me that as a teenager. She was like, don't have sex on your period. It's not healthy for you. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And
mm,
now as an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know if there's like research or whatever, but it just makes sense to me that when you're like shedding, not to like put anything in there because it's supposed to come out.
yeah,
So
Yeah, I think it's more of an energetic standpoint for me. I know some women say, like, if you follow like Kim Anami on Instagram, who's like the sex guru lady, she always talks about. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
She does like a lot of like, I mean, actually really amazing work around like, like owning your sexuality for both men and women. And I think her work is wonderful. And she's very pro period sex. She's like, oh, it can help with cramps. It makes you feel like a superwoman. And I get that. I'm sure it does help with cramps sometimes, like there's like feel good hormones in that. But for me, energetically, like, yeah, it's like the down and out sensation in my cycle. And it's a time of really being with myself and like honoring my energy and being in my energy. Because for most of your cycle, like in your ovulatory times, your energy is quite outward, like we were talking about at the beginning. And at menstruation, you get to be inward. And it's like the same reason I wouldn't use tampons because that's like impeding the flow.
Totally. And I remember as a teenager, like, my friends were always shocked that I wouldn't use tampons. I swear I think I used tampons like 3 times in my life. And I think
Mhm.
one of them was on my honeymoon because we went to Hawaii and I was bleeding on my honeymoon. So I was like, I want to be able to go to the ocean.
Yeah,
But
totally.
and so that was like when I was 22, like that was the third time maybe I'd used tampons. And I as a teenager, my friends would be like, like, oh, how, like, what do you do? Like when we have pool parties, whatever. I just would wear a pad and I would just not go in the pool. And I was like, I'm just not gonna go in the pool. Or like, like it's okay. I don't have to go in the pool right now. Clearly,
Yeah.
I don't want to. Like that's not worth it for me. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I've never felt, I mean, I used the like menstrual cup for a while there, but I noticed that it was like making my cramps really bad. And
Yeah.
um, it just never connected with me. And again, like these are all things that my mom told me, right? Like my mom was like, don't use tampons, don't use like the menstrual cup, like
I
let the
know.
blood flow out of you. And I, of course, wanted to oppose it for a while, but now as
So
a,
what was the point where like you did shift back to your mom's beliefs? Like I know there was that moment in high school where like you got more invested in periods again, but it sounds like it still took a little time for you to I mean now like I look at you and I'm like, "Oh, you're a woman who lives cyclically." Like what was that transformation like?
um, yeah, that's a whole thing to itself. So when I was 18, like I just graduated high school, I was 18. My parents divorced and my mom moved back to Israel.
Okay.
And that so up until that moment, I was so oppositional to everything that she did.
Mm,
And I graduated right around when COVID started too.
mm,
Actually, like I think COVID started when I was like in my freshman year of college, but
okay.
it was around that time. So it was both my mom moving away and then like not having her near. And then also during COVID, the first like year and a half of COVID, I was very intense about like, you gotta mask, you gotta like, it was very
Oh,
much like
yeah.
science. Like I got the vaccines, I did all of that, and I was like
Oh,
really
yeah.
hardcore. And I got really sick from the vaccines. I like actually developed some like heart stuff from it. And
Whoa.
um it was that moment that I was like, huh. And so then I was like, this is really important. I don't know how I haven't gotten into this. I was on birth control this whole time too, which my mom was really opposed to. Like my whole
Mm.
life, my mom was like, I'll teach you how to track your cycles. You cannot get
Oh,
pregnant if you don't ovulate, right? And I was like, fuck, no, I'm going on birth control.
I know. Why? Oh, yeah.
I know. I wish yeah, but we had to go through it, right? So
Yeah.
she like wanted to teach me natural
Wow.
cycles and she was like, I'll buy you condoms and whatever. And I just refused. Like, I was like, no,
Yeah, you
I
had to
need
figure it out
to.
yourself.
Yeah. So I got the arm implant and I was on that for a long time, like 3 years.
Oh,
And
that one is so rough.
it's so rough. Oh my gosh. I mean, actually, at that time, I was like diagnosed with really severe OCD. I would literally
Whoa.
like be in the shower and have to like take my earrings out 5 times before I could go to bed because I believed that my family would die. And it was this crazy, like I was crazy. I seriously was going nuts. And
Well, and of course that's related to the birth control.
oh yeah,
Like so I was never really on birth control. I was on it for 3 months and I was actually someone who like really didn't want to go on it despite I don't know why. Like I wasn't like into holistic health or anything yet. But it was like when I was in college and my mom really wanted me to go on it. She was like, please, you're in college, please go on birth control. And I was like, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. And finally, like I caved and went on it. And I felt like just emotionally volatile. Like I just could not regulate myself. Like I was just not myself. And it's like, yeah, of course I wasn't myself. I was having fake hormones pumped into me.
It's, I don't think enough women like think about that, and the amount of women that I know who have gotten on birth control when they were like 15, 16, and then ended up on antidepressants, and
Yes.
there's no association of
No,
like,
no one talks about the association.
no, every, like I know so many girls and women who are on both, and they started the antidepressants after birth control, and I'm like, well, did you try not taking birth control? Right, like, so, and I totally like, I the first time I took birth control I was 17, and I had the implant, and it was like for 3 months, and I hated it, so I took it out, and I wasn't sexually active at the time. I just wanted to get on it because all of my friends had, again, trying to like get into, like
Be cool.
societal whatever. um yeah. So I got off of it, and then when I started dating my husband, so I guess he was 16, I was 17, I got on the pill for a while before I transitioned to the implant. And I was so anxious and depressed, and I had very severe OCD tendencies, and I told my mom, I was like, you need to take me to a psychiatrist, like I need to go on antidepressants. And she was like, fuck no, you're literally on birth control, you went and got birth control behind my back, and it's making you crazy. No, like go do yoga. She sent me to like this yoga teacher to help me.
Wow. Your mom gets like some sort of award for being just awesome.
I know, she's amazing. And yeah, so fast forwarding then to COVID years. So this whole time I'm like, I'm crazy, right? I'm literally like, I'm taking off my earrings 5 times every night and putting them back on so that I don't die and my family doesn't die. And on a plane, I would like, do all these weird shit so that the plane doesn't crash. Like I was
Oh,
really
babe.
crazy. So, and I
Yeah.
felt crazy. I felt like I wanted to go on medication. I wanted something to
Yeah.
stop it. And
Yeah, of course.
yeah, and then with COVID, and when I kind of started having all of my heart stuff, I was like, I didn't even think at the time about like, oh, maybe something is fishy about this, but I just kind of was like, okay, with all this hard stuff, maybe it's a good idea for me to not have hormones. And I remember one of my best friends from high school at that time had also gotten the Nexplanon removed,
Mm,
because we both got it around the same time. And she said she felt amazing. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it out. And I took it out, and pretty much like from that moment on, it was like I became a whole new person, and it's still so
wow.
evolving. Um,
Yeah.
but that's when I started like questioning some things. I was like, well, I was told birth control was like this beautiful magical pill that's just going to fix everything in my life and make me not get pregnant. But now I'm off of it, and I'm not crazy anymore, and I don't feel depressed and anxious about everything. Like, what's happening? And then, from there I started kind of having some gut problems, like after I got off birth control. So then I went to see the doctor, and the doctor was like, oh, nothing is wrong with you, you just have IBS, like typical doctor things.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, maybe I should see a naturopath if my doctor can't give me answers. And then I started seeing a naturopath, and then I started going down that rabbit hole. So
Uh,
and that's when I started realizing, like, oh, my mom's a very smart woman.
you're like, all of a sudden, I really need to call my mom and say thank
I'm
you.
suddenly like, wow, you knew everything. And like, how the fuck did you even like deal with me, as a teenager? Um,
Love. That's called love.
yes. And I remember having a lot of conversations with her of like apologizing and taking responsibility
Mm,
for how,
wow.
everything I did. Like I was so mean, and I
Mm,
really hated everything my mom was doing, all the spiritual stuff, all of
mm,
the holistic stuff. I thought that she was crazy. I was like, you're just like, and I would tell her that. I would tell her that. I would tell my friends that.
mm.
And so there was a lot of like sitting with that, and really,
Yeah.
and taking responsibility and accountability for, like being this, and most of all, thanking her for standing her ground in that whole thing and not losing herself in it.
Yeah.
um yeah, and so now, like, and I won't lie, I think, I love my mom more than life, but if she says something sometimes holistic, even now when I'm holistic, I'll be like, eh. you know
Well, we're like, I don't know. We're so conditioned to need to like differentiate ourselves, you know? Um, yeah. So I think there's maybe always going to be a little bit of that, but I think it's really special that you were able to like come back around and really, it's almost a mother wound healing that you did to really see your responsibility in it and heal this relationship with your mother and feel like, wow, she always did know what was best for me and come to that place. And gosh, yeah, it also it's like both a common story to like go from the doctor to the naturopath, but I think it also takes like courage and I don't know what word to use, like a certain kind of self-knowing to even imagine that there's something beyond what you've been told because some people might have just, like you said, gone on the antidepressants and not even thought like, oh, well, maybe something's fishy here. Like maybe this is what's causing the problem in the first place. So for you to have that like thought, that seed had been planted to be able to say, okay, this Western doctor is clearly not getting to the root cause. Let me see what else is available for me. Like that's an act of self-love to yourself. And yeah, I think that's really, really beautiful.
yeah, and I mean, I credit that to my mom, right? She planted those
Yeah.
seeds. So even though I
Yeah.
was opposed to it my whole life, like when things actually started affecting me badly, it was in me to like start
Yeah.
questioning those things because
Yeah.
she planted that inside me. And so it's like, yeah, and so I feel very grateful. My mom lives with us now. She like
Aw.
visits she leaves for like a few months and then she comes for a few months, and she's like, here's your
Aw.
room. And so
That's
I
so
like went this
sweet.
morning and I showed her the book and I was like, I'm so excited. I'm gonna go talk about like all the amazing
Oh,
stuff that you did for me when I was a teenager. And it made her so happy, to I mean, she always tells me that the best healing thing that I've done for her, with all the stuff I did as a teenager, is now as an adult, like accepting her wisdom. And so
I'm gonna
it's,
cry.
yes, yeah. So,
So sweet.
yes, I know. And I'm very excited for my mom in terms of, so I'm a birth worker, right? And I got into the natural birth realm along with my journey into like holistic medicine. And I was actually into natural and home birth even before, even when I was very pro like modern medicine, because I had
Yeah.
a yoga teacher who was a doula and she would post all these home births and I thought it was really cool. So
Wow, that's awesome.
um yeah, but my mom, the only thing that she's never been holistic about in life was birth. And like
Mm.
I was born via C-section at like 36 weeks because my mom just wanted me out. And so, and my sister had two C-sections and all of these things. And I'm so excited for my mom in the future to get to experience seeing me birth naturally, because I talk to her about that all the time and she's
Wow.
like, it's like something that was never even in her realm of thought, because she was in the
Mm.
phase of when she gave birth to my siblings in the 80s. Like she was shaved by a man doctor, while she was like giving
Ew.
birth and like all of this stuff. So, and to her, it was all very normal. So
Ugh.
it's very fun to be able to be like another added thing though, right? Like I took all of
Yeah.
these seeds that she planted and now I'm like expanding it even more and she gets to like learn even more, and
Yes.
it's really fun to talk about that. So
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, while you were saying that, I was like, you took what she gave you and like cultivated your own new thing from it.
mhm.
And I mean, it's kind of interesting that like her orientation to like the cycle is different than orientation to birth, but birth is such like a final frontier for people in like the health world. I'm not that surprised.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's really beautiful that you can kind of like, I don't know, give back to her in that way, like teach her something after she taught you so much. That's kind of cute and sweet. And I'm sure that whenever you do get pregnant and give birth, it's going to be really healing for all of you on like a very deep level.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's really sweet. Well, I'm curious, like you've shared a little bit, but I love to ask women once we've gotten kind of where they are now to just ask you, like, who are you right now in regards to your relationship to your body, your womb, like all of these things? Like, who are you?
Oh, I'm still figuring out who I am.
Yeah.
um, I think I am much more woman, like much more connected to my feminine energy, just
Mm,
really embodying the feeling and sensations of being a woman.
mm,
And I know that, it's like the simple answer, what am I, a woman? But like I think for a
no.
very long time, modern feminism really got to me of like feeling like I need to be a man and compete
Yeah.
with like men. And I think through being in a marriage with a man who really honored me as a woman has been very
Mm,
like healing in the sense that and my parents were always very like man and woman, and my mom always very much embodied woman, but because I was so opposed to it, I would feel like I needed to be something else. And
yeah.
I think that's where I'm really connecting to being a woman, to honoring my cycle, to honoring my body, and learning more of it. Like I'm still very new to it. I'm still very new to actually tracking my cycle and knowing my cycle and connecting to like what is it that my body needs in every phase. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's such a beautiful exploration. I was just recently talking to someone saying I've really spent the last like 5 years of my life since I was 22 or 23, 5 or 6 years, like understanding what it means to be a woman. And I just think that that's like something we all go through, especially like you said, with the like conditioning of the certain feminist stuff that like really wasn't very feminist at all. It's like learning how to be in your power in as a woman. And I think it's such a beautiful and exciting exploration, and it feels so good. It feels so good to learn that and to like soften into that. So I'm really excited for you and proud of you. And yeah, it's just really inspiring.
It's a fun
Um,
time.
yeah. So the last question I always ask every woman is to just share a piece of womb wisdom to leave with the women listening. So whatever little like nugget wants to come through, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I think just um being honest with yourself has been like a huge part of my womb wisdom journey, is like just being fully present and honest in like what is going on, no matter what it is. And no matter if it's not what you where you want to be, what you want to be, like just being honest with where you are is like the
Mm.
first step for everything. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's beautiful. It's like the only place you can really do anything from. It's a place of honesty. And your womb
Yeah.
won't let you be anything but honest if you're really tuning into her.
Yes, it will not. But you're right. But that's where a lot of, I think, women, right, get lost. And I did too, is like you try to be this other thing, and then your womb is like, no, like even with cramps, if you're trying
Oh
to be this
yeah.
like active, like I'm gonna go out and do all these things while like on your first day of your bleed, for me, I'm like in like excruciating pain if I do that. But if I
Yeah,
just
she's
honor
like, no.
right, but if I'm just laying down watching TV and eating chocolate, I like am not in pain. I feel great,
Yeah, it's kind of incredible. Yeah, gosh. Oh, thank you, Tohar. I'd love to also, I know you have some offerings you'd like to share. So if you want to let women know where they can find you and what you're offering right now, I'd love that.
Yeah, so I do birth work, I do birth photography, and I'm a doula. And you can find me at birthinpowerdoula.com, or on Instagram, it's birth in power photography. Yeah, and I work with sovereign births and even, I mean, technically free births, I guess, if it's just photography. So, yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Oh, this has been so great. I just have absolutely adored hearing your like incredibly sweet story. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast. so that it could reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle, in the show notes below. There you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions, shop the herbal shop, and any group programs that I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.